Welcome back. Now we're going to go to the phones here for the next couple of segments. See the toll-free line on your screen, 888-766-2428. Again, I'm asking you at home as we're in day 32 of this shutdown, who do you blame for it? And Andrew Whitman here joins us. He's going to help put a human face in this shutdown in a little bit. Let me get to our first call, Andrew, and then we'll hear from other voices around the country. Let's start off in Elizabeth, New Jersey. Lloyd, you're on the line. Thank you for holding. Go ahead.
Hi, thank you for taking my call. Thank you very much. The president specifically and the Congress in general, I have to say that my belief in the American system, and I'm an American. My father fought in World War II. I believe in this country. This is my country. I love it. It's my country. And there was supposed to be a system of checks and balances that one man with some irrelevant, abstract, deranged fixation on a wall is now destroying the whole country. And people around him, all these generals and scientists and senators and whoever, aren't doing anything about it. That's the thing that just makes me bewildered. I say to American people, we got to remember this when you go to the polls next time. But I just wanted to say that I can't understand, and I'd like to hear somebody, including you, sir, address how the checks and balances of this system is simply not working. Thank you.
Well, thank you for the call, Lloyd, and I want to bring Andrew in right now. It's funny. Last couple of years, we've had an interest in civics in this country because there's been a lot of incidents where people are trying to understand, don't we have co-equal branches of government? What can the president do? Can he do? Well, in this particular case, Congress has a role, but there's a magic number, and it's not, as some people think, simply 50-51 here in the Senate or the plurality in the House that's going to decide this. If they want to do something to override the president, Congress can do it. But they need to have basically a veto-proof margin to do it. And in the Senate, that means 13 Republicans have to agree with the Democrats to reach 60 votes here to basically say we're going to open the government no matter what. And that's where the rub is. It's really 13 people.
Yeah, that's even a few steps down the road. If Mitch McConnell, first of all, it's one person, Mitch McConnell, who would then open the floor up to a bill.
And he's the Senate majority for folks who aren't familiar from Kentucky, the Republican.
Which he's going to do on Thursday for a bill that would just temporarily reopen the government. At that point, that vote would need 60 votes. So you would need 6 Republicans to cross over. You need 13 Republicans to cross over. And then you need 66 votes to override a presidential veto, which is what you would expect. That's a much tougher nut to crack, assuming that you can get through the first batch of votes. But McConnell has been single-handedly blocking any efforts from the House by simply not putting the legislation that the House passes in front of the Senate.
And to put it to Lloyd, when you say, well, where are the adults here in the room? Andrew's point is, look, the Senate could at least bring votes up. And we could at least hear the 100 people elected in the U.S. Senate to say, what will they do? We already know what the House is going to say. The House will say, we got the votes here. We want to reopen the government. McConnell won't let that simple vote come to the floor of the Senate because his argument is the president's going to veto it anyway. Well, how about everybody put some money where the mouth is? And to Lloyd's point, let's see where people stand. And then you can then calibrate it. But McConnell won't even let that bring to a vote. Now, Andrew, I'm going to get back to the phone lines, but you have some forget numbers for a moment, human voices about how this is impacting the shutdown of the American public.
We do, and we also will lay out as we go along some of the things that may happen if the shutdown continues. But we often think of federal workers just missing paychecks, and that's the extent of the impact of the shutdown. But that can go a lot further than just a bank account or missed bills, including for one furloughed worker who's coping with both muscular dystrophy and the shutdown.
About 4 days where I was off the medication, trying to not have a seizure. You have people that are being evicted. You have people that are going without insulin and going without the care they need. And as a person with a disability, the threat to me is I get put in an institution because I can't take care of myself.
Now, the shutdown impacts different parts of the country differently, and the problem is particularly pronounced, as you might expect, in the D.C. metro area, which is home to so many government workers. So the school system in Montgomery County, Maryland, held a job fair for government workers who are seeking temporary work during the shutdown as substitute teachers, but also as bus drivers or janitors or security or clerical jobs. One of the people who applied is a project manager for NASA.
Like many others, it's causing cash flow problems and anxieties and stress along with that, and meeting various obligations is difficult. I have a daughter in college. One of the concerns is paying the tuition for the rest of her semester. It's important for me to take positive action where I can to improve my situation.
And that's a guy doing what he has to do to provide for his family. But imagine you're a project manager at NASA and you could wind up pushing a broom at a Rockville, Maryland school. Or
And how about, Andrew, Coast Guard? The Coast Guard are patrolling, our waters to keep drugs out, okay? Let alone helping people who obviously have emergencies out there. And they were told on the official website to have basically, basically tag sales in their yard, or to go to a food bank to grab some food or whatever if they need to.
Barter with your landlord and provide services, clean around the building. I mean, think about also TSA agents, the ones who are protecting us as we go through the airports.
Yep, I just mentioned that. Imagine.
We're hearing reports of people who are asking if they can sleep in their cars at the airport because they can't afford the gas to travel back and forth.
Let's go to Bonnie in Oceanside. Go ahead, Bonnie, you're on the line. Yes, Bonnie. Go ahead, Bonnie, you're on.
Yeah, I was just saying that with the shutdown, it just seems that it's.
I'm going to ask you, you got to turn down everybody your TVs when you call in, otherwise you'll get feedback. Let me go next to Suzanne in Red Bank. Go ahead, Suzanne, you're on the line.
Hi, this is Suzanne. Thanks for taking my call. I believe Trump is dangerously out of touch with his working public. I don't believe he's actually ever had an hourly paid job. These are his employees that are working for him. He's basically forcing them to work without a paycheck. And he's trying to make a point of what exactly? And then the other part that bothers me is that he walked out of a negotiation meeting with Democrats, and now he's actually blaming them for not negotiating. So that doesn't make sense. And I also think the buck stops with you, Mr. President. So
Suzanne, in fact, Suzanne, if I can interrupt, I want to, if I could, Larry, if we can bring up the polls, and I'll go back to the phone lines. Obviously, this is, at the end of the day in Washington, it is about politics. And if people believe that one side inevitably will be blamed for this, they're going to start having more of an urgency to move. You see right there as to, and Andrew can help me with this graphic here, who people are blaming overwhelmingly when you look at it. It's not just the majority blame the president, but when you break down by groups right now, it's really noticeable. It's the president first and foremost, overwhelmingly so. And then you break it down by political party, et cetera. But this is the president's shutdown. And
those numbers haven't changed since the beginning of the shutdown. And his approval ratings have taken a hit also. Clearly, public sentiment is saying it's President Trump's shutdown. And there you see the approval ratings. As his approval ratings have dropped, his disapproval ratings have risen. That's since the beginning and to the current day of the shutdown.
All right, let's go back to the phone lines. Let's go to Rich in Prospect Park in New Jersey. Rich, thanks for joining us. Go ahead, you're on.
Hey, how you doing, Rich? Yeah, my thing is, why doesn't President Trump use his own billions of dollars to pay for the wall? Like, why make the whole rest of the country suffer?
You know, a president shouldn't have to go into his own pocket if there's an initiative he believes in. But here is where my rub is. Let's say, agree or disagree with the wall, but he believes that it is a major component to national security. Forget that he lied about Mexico paying for it. Forget all that stuff. Have a strategy for how you're going to do it. I'm not exaggerating. When I said before, he agreed the night to keep the government open while they negotiate. He hears on the radio that Ann Coulter and the like are making fun of him for doing it, and he's a wimp or whatever else. He immediately changed his mind without any endgame on who would capitulate, etc. Democrats can't cave. If the president thinks about his political base, the Democrats think as well. There was ways out for the president. Here's unsolicited advice. You now are hearing from the FBI that literally them prosecuting cases against, people who are attacking children, gangs, etc., are being compromised because of the shutdown. National security, TSA, as Andrew mentioned here, the Coast Guard, I can go on. They're being impacted as well. If he came out and says, I want my wall, but I want to protect this country, I'm going to reopen the government temporarily, but it's on you Democrats to negotiate in good faith here. I'm going to give you 4 weeks before we come back to the table. Forget what some fringe right-wing radio people say. He'd be seen, potentially, Andrew, who's somebody who put country before self, even if it's manufactured. He would earn more goodwill with that. But I've seen nothing in 2+ years to see that he's able to admit either mistake or, in effect, pivot here and find some, I think, element of humanity to say, I get it, I made a mistake.
He has never admitted to a mistake, at least certainly not since entering public life as a political candidate or in elective office as president. But the shutdown is also working against his own interests. All of the talk about how people who come and claim asylum in this country, and then the catch and release program that the president hates so much, well, there's now a backlog in the immigration courts. People are getting 2-year delays on their cases. So these people who are filing asylum claims and the president rues that they're out and about around the country, they're not going to be out and about around the country for an additional 2 years because his shutdown has delayed the immigration courts so their cases stay open longer.
And you heard the FBI. Look, the president came, for the viewers watching us in New York, remember he came to Long Island, MS-13, basically he all but called it but the biggest threat to American safety, and believe me, they're an awful gang. The FBI told us today they are being compromised and cracking down on that gang because of the shutdown and the resources that are being compromised. They can't pay basically informants anymore or anything else as all part of it. At the same time, by the way, that those same FBI agents who took the job as a pay cut, trust me, there's something else they could do, are losing both their vision and dental benefits while this is all going on. Just think about the messaging we're sending to people on the front lines. All right, we take a break. When we come back, I'm going right back to the phone lines. You see the toll-free number right there on your screen. If you haven't joined us, please do. I'm going to try to get as many calls as I can. 888-766-2428.
Today is day 31 of the government shutdown. Now that the shutdown is over 30, Democrats are just hoping Trump will start to lose interest. Well, on Saturday, Trump gave a speech where he offered a deal to Democrats to end the shutdown. If you missed it, Trump basically said, you give me the border wall, and in return, I'll let you give me the border wall.